What I want to talk about today is a little bit different. I wanted to specifically talk about Alexis Ohanian's speech. Alexis Ohanian, probably don't know him, he's very famous in the US, proclaimed by Forbes magazine as the mayor of the internet. He is essentially the co-founder of Reddit.com, the front page of the internet, which probably means more to you than his name. He's also an investor in over 80 startups, so pretty inspiring guy. He's 29, makes us all probably feel like failures, but he's really awesome, really approachable, and a genuinely really cool guy to chat to. So he didn't talk about Reddit. What he spoke about was his campaign against PIPA and SOPA, which were essentially the US bits of legislation that essentially tried to close down the open internet. More extreme versions of what we had in the UK as known as the Digital Economy Act, which is still sort of happening, which I'll talk about a bit more in a second. Oops, it's not linked here, one second. So what did I learn from him? Essentially, the cool stuff can happen when people come together. So Alexis organised with the general manager of Reddit, a guy called, forget his name, sorry, one second. He's called Eric Martin. They organised a bus tour to essentially promote the fact that actually the internet is important for everyone in the US, and an open internet is particularly important, especially in this day and age. And they started this by thinking, well, how can we get people to come together? So they started off and thought, I know, let's use crowdsourcing platform, to fund a billboard and put it outside the guy's office, forget his name, he's called Lamar Smith, who's the member of the Senate who kind of put in place these bills, and they funded 2 billboards outside his office through crowdfunding, saying don't mess with the internet. So they did this, which I thought was pretty inspiring. It's about, you have an idea, put it on crowdsourcing, see what happens. And they kind of went further, and they actually then decided to crowdfund a bus tour using Indiegogo to go throughout the country and just promote and document how the free and open internet is beneficial to the US economy and how it's actually important to all of us. But it goes beyond that, and this is the bus they use. By the way, it's blue and red because the idea was to make it a non-partisan issue of the open internet and actually put it on the political agenda of both parties, that both, and essentially it's a point-scoring sort of exercise, but very effective. But why is this relevant to us? As I said before, we've got the Digital Economy Act. At the moment, it went through, didn't get debated. It was put out in what was called the washout period. I used to work in politics, so sorry if I'm getting a bit geeky about it. But essentially it was debated when no one was in Parliament and got sort of fast-tracked through. However, it's currently being debated. Long and short of it, it means that potentially any link which you post on a website, which may or may not, but could be suspected of linking to illegal content, could essentially could lead to you to get a criminal record. So very relevant to us in the UK as well. So that's why I think it's important to talk about today, because I think that we have to fight it in the UK in the same way Alexis has done in the US. And to do this, I think we need to dispel 2 myths. And this is a picture I took of his presentation, so excuse the quality, but I quite like the image. And the first one is that it's about Hollywood versus Silicon Valley. But actually it's not, because the battle against piracy isn't about, Hollywood versus a few big tech companies. It actually impacts all of us. Indeed, the legislation would have shut down, open post fields on any website. So, goodbye Tumblr, end shared video experiences, sorry YouTube. Indeed, last month alone, there was someone who was trying to sue a parent who put a video up of their little baby playing around because there was music in the background, which they didn't have the copyright for. And of course, an expanded definition of the legislation would mean that you cannot share links to certain websites which you do not have a copyright for, i.e. by Twitter. So it actually impacts us all. The second thing, which this sort of Joe Biden said to Paul Ryan in the vice presidential debate, which Alexis Ohanian said was a load of malarkey, is the idea that the legislation anti-piracy is created because actually it's about fairness and it's about people getting paid for the things they do, i.e. musicians. As Alexis said, this is a load of malarkey. And you may have seen this here. This is a picture which a singer of a band in the 60s, he's called Lester Chambers, and this actually went viral in the US, not so much in the UK. Essentially, I won't read it through. This record went gold on Columbia Records, sold hundreds of thousands of records throughout the US. Essentially, he didn't get paid a penny. They screwed him over. They lost interest in him. It was kind of one of those early deals. He signed it, probably shouldn't have. They screwed him, made no money whatsoever. And really, this is about the music industry not being able to adapt, and the entertainment industry not being able to adapt to technological changes. And the natural order really is to adapt, but the entertainment industry never has. As Alexis said, it would be a really interesting, or rather boring case study if you were to Harvard Business School and look at how the evolution of the music industry has sort of taken place. New consumer demand, send in a lawyer. New product development, create a bit of legislation. The music industry and entertainment industry essentially legislates, it doesn't innovate. Ironically, of course, Lester did innovate, and now he's up and running again. With the help of Alexis, using Kickstarter, he got $60,000, and now him and his brothers are creating a new album, and this is going to be all royalties paid to him. Just another anecdote on this. Another thing Columbia Records did to him, they released an album, they released a cover. There's a bunch of white guys on the cover because they said the black people didn't match the audience. So fuck the industry is what Alexis Ohanian was saying. To say it's fair is an absolute fallacy. And there are numerous examples of this around innovation and how actually the internet is creating new opportunities for the entertainment industry. There's a brilliant example, $20,000 raised on Kickstarter. This guy from New Orleans to create the Daft Punk Brass Tribute Act. Awesome. Another one, and this is actually from the UK, plug for my friend's band called Swiss Lit's album coming out next month, first single just about to be released. Band from Manchester, you know, they're sort of, you know, massively, you know, they've said themselves the internet has ruined the music industry. Conversely, they've been really innovative. They sold one of their tracks to Umbro, put it on their website, got quite famous, put a video on YouTube, their single, You Got the Power, about to be released. 500,000 hits on YouTube later, they've been signed by Sony. So there are ways in which actually the internet can create new and innovative ways in which the music and entertainment industry can sort of really benefit. So it's not all doom and gloom, far from it. In many ways, it can bring bands closer to their fans. Sorry, 1 second. And the other thing Alexis did, which I think is really important, we live in a world in which you can see for breakfast essentially what Kim Kardashian has for breakfast, who Rihanna is dating. People tweet about it. Yet when it comes to legislation and our representatives in government, we don't know what they spend their money. Look at the expenses scandal. We have no idea what's happening. I phoned up my MP, as it happens, about the Digital Economy Act. They didn't have a clue what it was. Alexis on stage used this app, which one of his, you know, someone on his tour who he met created. It's called Contact Congress. Finds your location, finds your local congressman or MP equivalent. Put them up on stage. The fact that the aides to the person he called, or rather the congressman, didn't even have a clue what SOPA or PIPA were, said a lot. If these people are meant to be representing us and they don't know what they are, we need to do something about that. So the call really from him, and I believe that is also for us for the UK, is we need to challenge these people. There aren't enough nerds or geeks in Parliament, or the fact they are called nerds or geeks is a derogatory statement in itself, I believe, because actually these are people who are creating the biggest businesses, and as a recent report came out, 8% of the UK economy is now based on the digital economy. So I think we really need to take heart in this and actually really drive this forward as a message. And lastly, I think this is really cool. So when the city of Detroit built motoring, totally destroyed the US economy, GM Motors down the pan, Toyota, because they actually invested in green energy, if you like, started to do well. Ford never did this. Despite all this, I think it's in Kentucky, these guys have created what is a threadless, you know, threadless, the website for t-shirts, essentially for cars. This is a crowdsourced car. It's the world's first community-designed vehicle. Google it, it's called the Rally Fighter. It's made essentially by people who funded it, and there's a whole website in which you can decide what sort of car you want to have made. So in the middle of all this economic crisis, when the automobile industry is going down the pan, it's the internet in the US which is driving the very industry which is failing. So I think it's quite inspiring. So the key really is, the internet is awesome, so let's keep to fight it free, and let's continue to innovate and pressurize Parliament to make sure it stays that way. Thank you.